That's it. Can you play in that key? Is it okay? Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parijakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parijakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavani Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. did forget. Okay. Okay. So this being the disappearance day of Madhvacharya, I believe. We'll read a little bit about him from the Samadhi's book, and then we'll have class on Bhagavatam. Sri Madhvacharya appeared in 1238 AD near Udupi, Karnataka in South India. He was considered an incarnation of Vayu, the wind god. He had an unusually strong physique and extraordinary intellectual power. Once a fierce Bengali tiger attacked Madhvacharya's sannyas disciple Satyatirtha. Madhvacharya wrestled the tiger and sent him away with his tail between his legs. Madhvacharya took Diksha at age 5, sannyas at 12, and left home. Sounds like Shankaracharya. I think he did the same thing. He appeared with a mission to fight and defeat Shankara's Mayavad or impersonal philosophy. By giving a pure interpretation of Vedanta Sutra, he promoted pure theism. He named his innovative Shastric explanation Dvaita Advaita Vada, pure dualism. After Shankaracharya, who had previously toured India spreading impersonalism, Madhvacharya also traveled the length and breadth of India preaching personal theism and devotion to Lord Vishnu. He defeated innumerable Jains, Buddhists, Mayavadis, atheists, logicians, and agnostics. With the hope of meeting Srila Vyasadeva himself, Madhvacharya walked up the Himalayas. Vyasadeva gave him a Shalagram Shila called Ashtamurti, approved his Bhagavad Gita commentary, and blessed Madhvacharya with deeper realizations of the Shastras. In Udupi, Madhvacharya installed a beautiful deity of Gopal, standing alone, holding a cow-herding stick. This deity manifested from within a chunk of Gopi Chandan, sacred clay. He established 8 maths, or temples, to lovingly serve Udupi Krishna. The sannyasi leaders of each math worshipped the Krishna deity with a rigorous regimen of ceremonial ritual, punctuality, and impeccable personal conduct. Every Ekadashi, they observed nirjal, or total fast, from all food and water. The Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya originates with the Madhvas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers thoroughly studied Madhva's works before compiling their philosophy. For the Satsandarbhas, Sri Jiva Goswami drew heavily from Madhva's writings. Jiva Goswami found the Gaudiya philosophy of Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva in Madhva's Bhagavat Parya. Sri Chaitanya himself visited Udupi, the seat of Madhva's sect. The Lord introduced Harinam Sankirtan into their sect. The Madhvas and the Gaudiyas share many of the same philosophical points. Both consider it necessary to surrender to the lotus feet of the Guru Padashraya. In the Sutra Bhashya, Madhvacharya cites the Brihat Tantra and the Mahasamhita to show that a disciple may reject a bogus guru who proves to be useless. He, the disciple, may then accept another qualified self-realized person as his guru. In Prameya Ratnavali, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan summarized the 9 principles common to both Sri Chaitanya's and Madhva's teachings. In Vaishnav Siddhanta Mala, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered all Gaudiya Vaishnavas to carefully observe the 9 instructions of truth given by Sri Madhvacharya through our Guru Parampara. And these are Sri Madhvacharya's 9 teachings. 1. Bhagavan Sri Krishna alone is the supreme absolute truth, one without a second. 2. He is the object of knowledge in all the Vedas. 3. The universe is real, Satya. 4. The differences between the Ishvara, God, and Jiva, soul, and matter are real. 5. Jiva souls are by nature the servants of the Supreme Lord Hari. 6. There are 2 categories of jivas, the liberated and the illusioned. 7. Liberation or moksha means attaining the lotus feet of Bhagavan Krishna. In other words, entering an eternal relationship of service to the Lord. 8. Pure devotional service to Krishna is the only way to attain this liberation. 9. The truth may be known by pratyaksha, direct perception, anuman, inference or logic, and shabda, spiritual sound or Vedic authority. And just to make one point, which he forgot to make, that the connection between the Madhva Sampradaya and the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya was cemented because Madhavendra Puri appeared in that Sampradaya. And then he introduced this intimate Radha Krishna worship, I think, there. And his disciple Ishwarapur functioned as the guru of Lord Chaitanya. And in that way we have a close reflection with the Madhvas. But if you read the Madhya Lila, I believe, when Lord Chaitanya is traveling in South India, he had met the Tattva Bhadis who were Madhvacharyas, and he kind of got in a case a little bit for in other words, they were officially worshipping Lakshmi Narayan, but they weren't entering into what Lord Chaitanya taught, intimate service to Radha and Krishna. Okay, Madhvacharya ki jai. And there are many nice pastimes about him, which we don't have time for right now. I wanted to do the Bhagavatam. Okay. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 30th day of January 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace HG Dravida Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 4, the Hamsa Gurya Prayers, Text 45. Brahma, Bhavo, Bhavantascha, Manavo, Vibhudeshwaraha, Vibhutayo, Mama, Yeta, Bhutanam, Bhutihetavaha, Brahma Bhavo Bhavantascha, Manavo Vibhudeshwaraha, Vibhutayo Mama Yeta, Bhutanam Bhutihetavaha, Brahma Bhavo Bhavantascha, Manavo Vibhudeshwaraha, Vibhutayo Mama Yeta, Bhutanam Bhutihetavaha, Brahma Bhavo Bhavantascha, Manavo Vibhudeshwaraha, Vibhutayo Mama Yeta, Bhutanam Bhutihetavaha. Brahma Bhavo Bhavantascha, Manavo Vibhudeshwaraha, Vibhutayo Mama Yeta, Bhutanam Bhutihetavaha. Brahma Bhavo Bhavantascha, Manavo Vibhudeshwaraha, Vibhutayo Mama Yeta, Bhutanam Bhutihetavaha. Brahma Bhavo Bhavantascha, Manavo Vibhudeshwaraha, Vibhutayo Mama Yeta, Bhutanam Bhutihetavaha. Brahma, Lord Brahma, Bhavaha, Lord Shiva, Bhavantaha, all of you Prajapatis, Cha, and Manavaha, the Manus, Vibhuda Ishwaraha, all the different demigods, such as the sun, the moon, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, who are all in charge of various activities for the welfare of the world. The Bhutayaha, expansions of energy. Mama, my. He, indeed. Etaha, all these. Bhutanam, of all the living entities. Bhuti, of welfare. Hetavaha, causes. Translation. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the Manus, all the other demigods in the higher planetary systems, and you Prajapatis, who are increasing the population, are working for the benefit of all living entities. Thus, you expansions of my marginal energy are incarnations of my various qualities. Purport. There are various types of incarnations or expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The expansions of his personal self, or Vishnu Tattva, are called Svangsha expansions, whereas the living entities who are not Vishnu Tattva but Jiva Tattva are called Vibhinangsha, separated expansions. Although Prajapati Daksha is not on the same level as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, he is compared to them because he engages in the service of the Lord. In the service of the Personality of Godhead, it is not that Lord Brahma is considered very great while an ordinary human being trying to preach the glories of the Lord is considered very low. There are no such distinctions. Regardless of whether materially high or materially low, anyone engaged in the service of the Lord is spiritually very dear to him. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya, very appropriate, Srila Madhvacharya gives this question from his Tantra Nirnaya. Vishesha Vyakti Patratvad Brahmadyastu Vibhutiyaha Tadantar Yaminash Chaiva Matsyadya Vibhavasmataha. From Lord Brahma down, all the living entities engaged in the service of the Lord are extraordinary and are called Vibhuti. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 10:41, Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam shrimat urjitam eva va tattadeva avagachatvam mamate jonksha sambhavam. Know that all beautiful, glorious, and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Close quote. A living entity especially empowered to act on behalf of the Lord is called Vibhuti, whereas the Vishnu Tattva incarnations of the Lord, such as Matsya Avatar, Keshavaditta Meena Sharira Jaya Jagadisha Hare, are called Vibhava. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, here Krishna is continuing to praise those who are carrying out his desire to try to deliver the fallen souls. This is the reason why Krishna comes to this world. He gives in the Bhagavad Gita, Yada yadahi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata abhyudhanam dharmasya tadatmanam sajamyaham. Famous verse, that whenever and wherever there's the rise of discrepancies in dharma and overwhelming predominance of the religion, at that time I manifest myself. And what does he do? Paritranaya sadhunam vinachaya cha dushkritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I protect the devotees, paritranaya sadhunam, and I destroy the miscreants, and I reestablish real dharma. So those who are helping him in this task, especially reestablishing dharma, give him a little poke there. Haribol Sureshwar. I know you're meditating on every word. It's okay. They're very dear to Krishna. In fact, he never comes alone. He's always with his agents, and he sends others before him and empowers those who appear after him to do this very work of reestablishing dharma, of enlivening the devotees, of combating the miscreants. And this is the interest he has in this world is not to anything of his own interest to enjoy here especially, but to reach out to the fallen souls who are all intimately related to him. Aham bija pradapita, he says in the 14th chapter. All the living entities, I am the father in every species of life. The jiva souls are all equal, ultimately. So he feels this compassion. It's almost just like Prahlad Maharaj. You know, he has no problem Naivod Vijay Padadaratya Vaitadanyas Tadvi Gayana Mahamata Magna Chitta. He says to Lord Nrsingadev. He says, I'm not at all disturbed. Wherever I am, I can simply chant your glories and dive into an ocean of nectar. And he proved it even in the middle of a boiling pot of oil. His father was trying to kill him. It wasn't that he was screaming in agony. He was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. And he was so fixed on meditating on Krishna that he didn't feel any pain. He was simply still in an ocean of nectar. But, he says, I am lamenting. What is this? Here's a pure devotee of the Lord, completely realized, and he's lamenting what he has to lament about. For the poor, foolish, fallen souls who have turned away. Vimukha cetasa. Every word is very important. It means literally they've turned their face away from Krishna. And they're meditating on the external energy since time immemorial. And bearing a great burden of trying to enjoy this flickering maya sukhaya, of happiness, which is simply getting him more deeply enmeshed in the suffering of this world. So this idea of pada dukkha dukhi, that phrase ring a bell? Who can tell me what it means, besides those who are... you know what it is, Vijamani. And conversely, dukkha dukhi. Dukkha means unhappiness. Yeah, this is the definition of empathy. There's sympathy, but more important is empathy. Empathy is where you're really feeling the pains and pleasures of others. In other words, parasukha sukhi is also there for devotees. There's this famous phrase, what is it? Sarva bhavantu, sukhino bhavantu. Sarve sukhino bhavantu. It's famous, right? Even children in India learn this, right? That let everyone be happy. Let everyone be happy. But not with sense gratification, which simply leads to more suffering, but by becoming Krishna conscious. Prabhupada would quote this sometimes. So this is Krishna's mood. In other words, he wants those who are suffering like anything in this material world. And don't forget, we're the tip of the iceberg. There's billions and billions of living entities in lower species and plants and so forth. Yes, they're suffering. Their consciousness is so rudimentary that they don't even know. But it's a tragic situation. Just imagine, this is all these jivas who are part and parcel of Krishna, who share his qualities, who are by nature transcendental, have given up all of that and fallen into a situation where they're barely conscious. I was just thinking of these trees, you know, these famous San Diego faux coconut trees. There's really no coconuts there. If there were, they couldn't plant them because they fall down on people's heads. But when the wind comes up, notice all the trash that comes from those trees. And here they are, just standing for, you know, I mean, they've been here long before I got here, and they're still here. I've been here 30 years. They're probably 100 years, some of them old. What a situation. They've got birth into San Diego, which is good, but all they can do is stand as trees. And the sun comes, the wind comes, and so on. So a devotee sees that as a tragic situation and works to try to save those who can be saved in the human form of life. We can only do so much for the lower plants. Yeah, if a cat comes... We had a cat out here, I think before, I don't know, maybe you remember, Janard. They gave him a name, Narada Muni. I said, you can't name a cat Narada Muni, but it stuck, they didn't give it. And he became a kheer addict. Cats love milk. So I would, you know, others would put a little, you know, the maha kheer, you know, put it on a leaf and go, and that cat would come and he'd find it every time, you know, for years, and then went back to God, I guess. You know, we don't see him anymore. But, you know, a few animals, you know, of course, cows who are cared for in Krishna farms, you know, they're very fortunate like that. But basically, it's human beings. This human life is a juncture where it's really possible to learn, to hear, and to understand the philosophy, and to control the higher self by the lower self by the higher self. The animals can't do that. They can't become self-controlled. They're working by instinct and, you know, desire. So you can give them some prasadam, that'll help certainly, you know. But basically it's for the human beings. And any human being who works to save others and give Krishna consciousness to others are the dearest to Krishna. natatasma manusheya kastume priya kritama. There's no devotees who are more dear to me than those who are trying to spread my message. So this is the essence of this movement. Lord Chaitanya condensed it in a motto that he gave to Nityananda, whose Parents' Day is coming up next Thursday, very glorious day. When back in Navadvip, before he took sannyas, he would send Nityananda and Haridas out to preach. This famously they encountered Jagat Madai. But before that, they were approaching all the houses. They would knock on the door, and they would chant this phrase that Lord Chaitanya gave them. And if they didn't respond, they would enter the house. They would roll on the ground and beg them. So, Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shika. That one, which is very simple. Please, or rather, you should. It's an imperative. Chant Shri Krishna's name, worship Krishna with all your heart, and follow his instructions. So I put it into a little motto we can share. I added one little part, which I think Lord Chaitanya will hopefully forgive me for this. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions, and to others them impart. You see? And so this is the essence of the Krishna consciousness movement. Think about it. Srila Prabhupada was ideal in all of those, right? And he was set, even despite all the difficulties and his age and everything, of coming to America in 1965 in order to impart the instructions and teach people how to chant a holy name and worship him with all their heart. That's the essence of it. And this temple, the deities, the whole system of bhakti that we have, is meant to do that. To give us a scientifically tried and true process of advancing ourselves in devotional service, Krishna consciousness, and imparting it to others. The temple means it's a preaching venue, right? And if before he had a temple, okay, let's go to the Bowery. We'll go to the loft in the Bowery. That'll be our temple for now. As long as we can chant the holy name and distribute prasadam. That would go a long way toward purification and attract people. And from there, everything grew and is still growing. So here, Daksha has gotten the direct darshan of the Lord. And now he's comparing Daksha to all the other demigods, even Lord Brahma. And you Prajapatis, who are increasing the population, are working for the benefit of all living entities. After all, you have to have a body. You have to take birth in order to be able to hear, in order to be able to advance in devotional service. So this is a big job, this populating the universe. And it ultimately devolves on Brahma, who was known as Prajapati. That's one of his names, Prajapati. And it doesn't always go smoothly, because after all, you're dealing with the material energy. When you read how Brahma started propagating, right? He was created, what did he have to work with? His own mind. So from his mind, he created something. They turned out to be demons. They went after him. So he rejected that. Then he had the 4 Kumaras. All right, he's my children, now please grow up and get married and, Said, no. It's almost like the start of that song, I won't grow up. Anyway, was it Pinocchio? Or it's one of the two. Anyway, it's an old popular song, But they really were able to do it by their mystic power. They were greatly learned. They were Shaktivesh. They are Shaktivesh avatars. And each Shaktivesh avatar has a specific Shakti that they specialize in. Narada Muni, Bhakti Shakti. Wherever he goes, he appears in every canto. He always preaches just according to time, place, and circumstance and candidate to give them the maximum devotional service. He preached to Prahlad in the womb. He preached to the hunter, made him a devotee. And King Prachanabarhi, right, who's important in this whole pastime. And Dhruva, of course. And so, and the 4 Kumaras, what's their special Shakti? Jnana. Jnana Shakti. And because of that, they weren't really pure devotees at first, right? They preferred Brahma Gyan. They weren't Mayavadis, but they preferred Brahma, just like Shukadev, the impersonal, absolute manifestation of the absolute truth. So But they underwent a sudden transformation when they went to Vaikuntha. Now, in one sense, Jai and Vijay, who stopped them from going, and they were correct, because they weren't really devotees, they were very advanced, but they became very angry, cursed Jai and Vijay, and there was a big commotion at the gate. They couldn't get through the 8th gate to Vaikuntha. And Narayan heard the commotion and started approaching. And even before he got there, the wind or the breeze blew the fragrance of his lotus feet, which had tulsi manjaris on them. And by smelling that, they underwent a transformation. There's a famous verse. They became bhaktas at that point. And then they started to lament, oh, what have we done? We've cursed these devotees. We're surely going to hell. There's a verse like that I memorized once, I don't recall like that. So they prayed to Lord Narayan, all the births that we're going to get for the sin, we're surely going to hell. But please let our words be just like Tulsi and being honored by offering unto you, and our ears always fulfilled by hearing you, and like that. So then they became head of their own sampradaya there. One of the 4 major Vaishnava sampradayas is the Kumara sampradaya. So the point is that there's an urgency. There's an urgency that we should feel to become Krishna conscious and to give as much Krishna consciousness as possible to others. Because time, Kali Yuga, this is a mundane example, but I don't know how much you follow the news. I follow it too much. But there's something, I remember when I was a kid they started this, or I became aware of it. It actually started right after World War II. The doomsday clock, how many minutes to midnight? And then scientists put it out, and they study the state of the world and everything. So at one point it was 10 minutes to midnight, then there was a Cuban Missile Crisis, 3 minutes to midnight, and then, back again to... Midnight means apocalypse, nuclear war, finished. You know how close it is now? 90 seconds. With all this going on with Ukraine and, face-off between Russia and NATO and all the craziness that's going on. Climate change, bring it. So, 90 seconds. So the point is, that doesn't mean we should start lamenting and rending our clothes and everything. We should become very serious about chanting Hare Krishna. That we're fortunate to have a situation where we can chant and we can be as Krishna conscious as possible. And we shouldn't waste any time. There's no time to waste. Not that it's it's not absolutely, certain that the world is going to go off, but it's just, it's so dangerous right now, and it's just reminding us. This is one of the things that the pandemic did. I think it got people who have been interested in Krishna consciousness. They maybe read a few books, they visited the temple a little bit, but they had so many other things to do. Whoa! Now I have to stay at home. I have to wear this mask. I could die without being able to breathe. Let me get a little more serious about chanting Hare Krishna. Maybe I should go to the temple. We had a real influx of devotees come here. Here's one of them, Dvijamani. Yeah, and our old friend Govardhan, who's traveling now with Maharaj. I got a email from him with some pictures. I'll maybe let you see him later. Maharaj is preaching to a huge crowd in Myanmar. He says preaching is wonderful here. But one of the reasons he wrote me the email was that he's worried about his car. Suddenly, because the battery tends to go dead on it. Anyway, we'll have to deal with that. It's parked in my spot. But the idea is that all over the world, everyone is thinking, well, everyone is feeling the climate change. I'm telling you, we have never had a winter like this before since I've been here. Never. I mean, we've had cold days, but not one after another, week after week like this, And of course, because of the war, the natural gas has gone way up, so it goes, it's a hardship for everybody. Even the laundromat, which used a lot of natural gas suddenly. So you're just reminded of the tenuous situation we're in. That's the point. What is that verse? There's a wonderful verse that Mahavishnu Maharaj, the elder, taught me. Deheshti mankshaduride bimatam cha jasva jaya sutari cha sadama matam vimuncha pashyani sham chakaditam cha nabhanga tishtam vairagya raga rasiko bhava bhakti nishtam. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids and home. And every moment see that your world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. And whenever I give this, I always say, I didn't do justice to that last line. It's so brilliant. Who wrote it? Who knows? It's in the Padma Purana. It's supposed to be in the Padma Purana. Sometimes I haven't been able to find it. But it's the Vairagya Raga. Become attached to detachment and become a rasika. Vairagya Raga Rasiko Bhava Bhakti Nishtam, and become very fixed in bhakti. So this is very good instruction. Yeah, this is a realization I had some time ago, and see what you think. The mercy of the Lord allowing us to worship Him on the altar and in form of Pancharatrika Vidya and everything. Just think about it. That one thing about you learn, right? Prabhupada said the main two aspects of deity worship are cleanliness and punctuality, right? Everyone knows that when they start even thinking about going on the altar. And of course, you have to be a Brahmin to go on. It's strict. We don't perform 1/10 of all of the strictures that are there, but still, it's very important. So cleanliness, okay. Now it is a fact. It is a scientific fact, and no one can really dispute it, that this body, and Krishna says, Yasyatma buddhi kunape tridatuke. Kunape means a bag. That's one of the meanings. Tridatus, mucus, bile, and air. And there are other nasty substances in the body, obviously. But it's unclean. Who can you have to take the shower, to just think of going on the altar. So here we are, those who go on the altar. I used to go on do evening artis every day, every week, a couple times a week. And we're dragging on the altar, we, the soul, our bag full of blood, stool, urine, and everything. Now, you can't even imagine, taking an inanimate bag full of those things on the altar. They'd say, get out of the temple. You can't even suggest that, But here we are, the Lord allows us to go on, worship Him, touch His form, and do all these things. Just to give us a chance to get trained up for our spiritual body, where it's, Shuddha Sattva, completely pure. But how merciful is that? To allow us mlechas even to go on the altar and enter the temple and chant. And that's all the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Krishna is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming and giving us this mantra. Every morning we're reading about it. There's wonderful glories of this Hare Krishna mantra. In this age, it's an ocean of faults. Who can deny it? Everywhere you look, the faults are getting worse. But there's one tremendous quality in this age. Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Param Bhajet. By simply chanting this holy name of Krishna, one can become purified, Mukta Sangha, free from all of one's attachments to this world, and Param Bhajet. Going back to Godhead. So what is it? It's a process of purification, Cetodarpana Marjana. The whole process of bhakti is purification. Purifying our consciousness, purifying our senses. Atakshi Krishna Namadi, you can't perceive Him, but if you begin serving Krishna with your tongue, chanting and hearing, and of course tasting prasadam, then one day by your purification, Krishna will reveal Himself to you. And along the way, you'll also get little mini realizations. Just the material benefits of chanting. Giving up the depression. I used to be, depressed when I was a kid, 18, 19 years old. A lot of it was just coming from the war, the Vietnam War. Oh God, there was one picture that really was very influential in mobilizing the anti-war sentiment. We dropped some napalm on this village, everyone was running out of the village, and one of the people who was running out of the village was this little girl who was naked. You've seen that picture? It's very famous. I said, what the heck is this? My government, that I'm paying taxes to, is now committing these war crimes and causing so much suffering for no reason, geopolitical. They didn't attack us or anything. So this just mobilized myself and many other kids. We're 15, 16, 17, 18, like that. So we worked so hard, but it was completely useless. All these demonstrations. And then in 1968, Nixon gets elected and keeps the war going another 5 years. It didn't end until I was in the movement a couple of years. I didn't even know it. So I was depressed. But then as soon as I chanted and joined the temple, no clouds, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, there's a kirtan in the temple. I mean, that temple on Henry Street, we had so many kirtaniyas, Bhardraj was there, Vishnu Gada, Jai Sachinandan. That's why I never learned to play the drum. Those who have to suffer through my drum, and there's no other drummer, thank you, Vrindavan, for taking up the drum. I'm playing my old conga drum beats, I can keep the beat. Because what's the point of me learning the drum? Here's these expert drummers and everything. I can just jump up and down. So anyway, the blessings of the Hare Krishna mantra are, of course, super spiritual, but they also give you material benefits. The cloud raises, the cloud in your consciousness raises, and there's some hope. What's the hope? There's no material hope. Even if there isn't a war, we're still going to die. If you're just trying to enjoy material life, which 99.99% of the people are, it's a hopeless endeavor. You know the phrase "Shrama eva hi kevalam"? You know that one. You would know. You know. What's it mean? Yeah, a complete waste of effort and time. Sometimes the example is given of in the Shastra of taking some sheaves of grain or rice and trying to get more rice and grain out of it, and there's nothing in there. You're just getting a sore arm, The example I always thought of is when in Greek philosophy, there's kind of a definition or an example of madness. If you see someone, because it's an island, So if you see someone out in the beginning of the ocean, they're standing in the ocean up to their knees, and they've got this big iron rod, and they're beating the waves. There's no godly reason why that would happen. It's just madness, And it's exactly like that. Trying so hard to enjoy in this world, to get some sense pleasure or some honor. Nadanang sundarin kavitam. There's another way of thinking of sundarin kavitam. There's a verse in the third canto I read. There's 3 things that the materialists become proud of: the wealth and followers and education. It's like a thing, And that's exactly what Lord Chaitanya says. I don't want wealth. I don't want followers. I don't want sundarim kavitam, beautiful poetic ability. Or Prabhupada says another way of translating it is that, wonderful wife, beautiful wife. So this is so much struggle for that, and so many people are getting so burned out because they can't get enough of these things, or they had it and they lost it, and this is the material world. We're living in this roiling sea of disappointment and struggle and anger and hate. Every day there's another mass killing. It's just crazy out there. America is insane. Giving everyone a gun, of course, a certain percentage of them are going to be crazy. So now you've got people with machine guns in their hands, little children shooting their teachers. The only sane thing is the Hare Krishna movement. I mean, think about it. So, back to the theme here. Now he's naming all of these manus and demigods who are increasing, they're all working for the benefit of all living entities. So those of us who are not demigods, or great manus or anything like that, but simply devotees of Krishna trying our best to advance in devotional service. When we embrace the idea of sharing with others, this is the whole thing, of helping others to become Krishna conscious. And so many venues, there's the lounge programs, the Sunday programs, My evening classes, by the way, there's often guests who come who could, be preached to. So they're eligible, even though they're not in the lounge. So it's nice to understand that. So those who embrace that austerity of trying to give Krishna consciousness to others, of course, book distribution is ideal, Harinam, anything in the temple, maintaining the temple so it's so attractive, that's also preaching. That very much pleases Krishna. And how does he respond? He gives you more taste for everything related to him. The holy name, the Tulsi Puja, the association of devotees, everything. And he increases your distaste and detachment from the material desires. Pasangam adaram pasham atmana kavayo vadu sahesha sadhachakato mokshadvaram apavatam. This is the practically beginning of Kapila Dev's instructions to his mother. Prasangam means very strong attachment. Mundane attachment keeps us bound to birth and death, infernal. But love for sadhus opens wide the doors to life eternal. And who's our sadhu? Our main sadhu is Srila Prabhupada. And I think he's made it clear, yes, you should practice Krishna consciousness very strictly and give it to others. Follow in my footsteps. You know, that's what I did. And so when we do that, we can see how Daksha, who hasn't even really done anything yet, but he's determined to do it, to perform the service of Prajapati, increasing the population. They're working for the benefit of all, and giving them bodies, and which they need, the senses, and then providing instruction in Krishna consciousness. So I'll leave it at that for now. If anyone has any comments or questions, locally or remotely, we can try to entertain them now.
I have a question.
Okay, could you just wait a little bit? We have some in-house questions. But you'll
Of
get,
course,
you'll get
I
it.
can wait, no problem.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Thank you for a wonderful class.
Hare Krishna.
I really liked in the beginning, it was, we talked about the demigods right off the bat. And this is my question, but I'm thinking now, so was that Bhavo is the name for Shiva?
Bhava.
Bhava?
Yeah. And you want to know
That's
why?
a stage of love of God. Is that, is that
no,
the same?
Bhava and Bhava are two different things.
Okay, all right. All right, Bhava.
Now, Bhava means change. This is the Bhava Sagara, this material world. Why? Because it's always changing. What are the main changes? Birth, old age, disease, and death. So, why that's that's the name of Lord Shiva? I'm not sure. If someone can illuminate.
Okay.
But Brahma is involved in creation, and Bhava is involved in destruction. So that's one of the main changes that this world goes. Constant little destructions ended up with a huge destruction. The whole thing is dissolved. So maybe that's why he's called Bhava. But I can research it for you.
So the main question I had was about the two, I don't know if you said Shaktivesha Avatar, but the two distinctions, the Prajapatis and those, Brahma and Shiva, are a certain type of expansion, and the Jiva is a different type.
Prabhupada
Can you
talked about that.
explain that deeply?
Yes, it's Svangsha and Vibhinangsha. So Svangsha means Sva-angsha, his own parts and parcels who are fully empowered. In other words, they're expansions, but it's Prabhupada's phrase, plenary expansion. Plenary means full. So like Narayan, Balaram is his first expansion. He's just like Krishna. Prabhupada said, just like Krishna, but he has a different color. You know, they have the full powers of Krishna, but they don't always display them. Only he displays them, you know. And Balaram immediately like that. But Narayan, he doesn't have the flute. He doesn't play the flute. You know, there's 4 special qualities that Krishna has that even Narayan doesn't have. Sarva Bhutta Chamatkara Lila Kalola Bharati Atulya Mandita Priyamandala. Those the first 2. Sarva Bhutta Chamatkara Lila Kalola Bharati. He's an ocean of Lila pastimes that astound both moving and non-moving living entities. You know, and Narayan doesn't have that. Narayan, you know, is very formal in Vaikuntha. Everyone looks like him, but he's got that special mark of Srivats, and he got the Kaustubha gem, so they know who's God. And it's all very formal, as you know, he's the master and we're the servants, and we're enjoying this servant mood. But in Krishna Lila in Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna hides that, you know, to increase the rasa, to increase the exchange of love. It's, you know, most obviously he hides it from his mother, from the elder gopis. So they think he's just a helpless boy. Oh, dance Krishna and we'll give you a sweetmeat. Okay. And he becomes, you know, it's like putty in their hands, you know. And their hearts melt, you know, and they give him so much sandesh, you know, whatever. So he still is powerful. If Putana shows up, you know, this is on the material world side, you know. He can kill her and show that he's God. You can't become God. God is God, and we're who we are. But there's all these expansions. Matsya Avatar, Varaha, the Shringadev, Varaha's coming right up soon, before Nityananda, just before. They're all plenary expansions. They're svangsha, but they only display a certain percentage of his glories. The vibhinangsha, vibhina means completely separated. Vibhina. So we are vibhinakshas. We're part and parcel of Krishna. We have his qualities, at least the first 50, in minute quantity. But we never merge. We're never merged, and we never merge. This is right at the beginning of Gita. Natvevaham jatanasa natvam neme janana. But Krishna says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, Arjuna, nor all these fighters. And we exist now, and in the future we will continue to exist in this form. So that's the great distinction. And Brahma is also a jiva. Occasionally there's no jiva who's qualified, and Krishna takes the role. But basically, Brahma is empowered jiva. Shiva is kind of in between. He has his own tattva, Shiva tattva. It's sometimes described, he's Vishnu in touch with the material energy. Vishnu doesn't really contort. But when Shiva consorts with it's sometimes said he is one of his manifestations, the glance of Mahavishnu, when all those living entities enter in and start manifesting. Nothing happens in the creation until that glance takes place. So that's a manifestation of Shiva. That's why the Shiva Linga, it's the whole thing. So he is not a jiva, but he's not Vishnu Tattva either. He's in between. But basically all the demigods, powerful demigods, Indra and all Vayu and Varuna and all of them, they're living entities, but they're empowered. They're Vimanangshad, but they're specially empowered to do their specific function. Let's see. And we can also become empowered. In Prabhupada, this little story, some of you have heard it before. When Prabhupada left this world in November '77, it's a long story. I was on the plane when heading there, and it was about November 12th, and there was a bomb scare on the plane. And so instead of landing in Heathrow Airport, getting a connection to Bombay, then going to Delhi and Vrindavan, we had to wait in Shannon Airport in Ireland for a whole day while they combed that plane with a fine-tooth comb to see if it wasn't a bomb on there. But we missed our connection. So we arrived, myself and my travel companion, on the 15th or 16th. I think it was the 15th of November, probably disappeared on the 14th. So that was Krishna's arrangement. But I was working for Bhakti Godhead, so I was also in the role of a reporter, So after attending the ceremonies for Prabhupada, it was very moving, of course, we went to Mayapur. There's something called the Pushpa Samadhi. It's not really where Prabhupada is interred, but it's another place of honor, and flowers that were placed on his form at that time were buried there permanently, and that came up. So we did that ceremony, and then I had some information that Sridhar Swami, Prabhupada's dear godbrother, had proof that Prabhupada was a Shaktivesha avatar. Well, that's newsworthy. That should be in Bhakti Godhead news story. So I went across the river and I visited his ashram. I met Krishna's Babaji there. It was a wonderful experience. And we went up to see Sridhar Maharaj, who was sitting on his veranda. He would sit there. And I offered dandavats, and he asked, why have you come? I explained the answers. He said, oh, yes, get the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And there was a verse in there, in the Antya Leela, I believe. The second line is, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahaitar Prabhatam. And the first line is that the Yuga Dharma of the age is Sankirtan, congregation chanting of the holy name. But unless one is empowered by the Lord, he cannot spread it all over the world. Ergo, Prabhupada is empowered by the Lord. He's Shakti-based, because he definitely spread it all over the world, and he's still spreading. So that was a very interesting thing. So the Shakti-based, anyone can be given empowered. In fact, whatever we do in devotional service is because Krishna is giving us the intelligence and to do it. But when you have a special power and so forth, it is Shakti-based. So all the demigods, have that, and some are more empowered than others, obviously. So that's the idea.
It was Leela and flute. Do you remember the other two characteristics?
Yeah. Let me start. Sarvadutta chamatkara lila kalola bharati atulya manara prema mandita priya mandala. That's the second one. Atulya manara prema mandita priya. This refers to Krishna's rasa dance, being always surrounded by loving devotees who are at the highest possible peak of love for him. Atulya means unequal. Antulya madhura prema, sweet love. None of the other avatars have anything like that. And Tridigun Manasarkashi Murali Kalakujita is that only Krishna plays that flute, which enchants the whole universe, you know. And so you have his unequaled beauty and opulence, an ocean of astounding Leela, surrounded by the most wonderful, loving devotees and the gopis, and the player of that flute, which enchants everyone. Those are unique four. There's 64 that he has, and Narayan they have up to 60, and Shiva has up to 55, and the jivas ourselves can have up to 50 in minute quantity. And they're all listed in Nectar Devotion, and examples are given. So, yeah, that's a nice way of thinking of Krishna. Okay, we have another question here from Dvijamani Prabhu.
Just to clarify, so everybody who's acting on behalf of the Lord can be empowered in the same way. So as was mentioned with the demigods, for instance.
Yeah, I think you've experienced that.
Okay.
I mean, someone like, you know, Matsol. By the way, here's how you pronounce his name: Mahotsaha, not Mahotsaha, or any variation. Mahotsaha is Utsaha Nishtayad. Anyway, it's just incredible, you know, this distribution, but obviously empowered. But it's true for any distributor. I mean, Vijay I knew him 35 years ago. He was distributing in the airport in Miami. He and about 4 or 5 others were supporting the whole temple. We had all his mortgage payments and everything. Was making. So that's empowerment. You know, and any service you do, you can't do it, and then finally you do it. And if you start doing it really well and with consciousness, you know, and relishing, that's all coming from Krishna.
Yeah. So as long as you are serving Krishna, you're empowered.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're serving Maya, you know, but that's the empowerment to become disempowered. In other words, Krishna will, if you want to forget him, he's going to let you forget him. We know that from experience, right? But what's the result of that? Is that you lose, you know, you may even very well lose your human form of life. In this age, if you're not part of the Hare Krishna movement and you're trying to follow the restrictions, you're going to be committing grievous sins. You know, eating the meat and the intoxications and listening to that crazy music and everything. It's a downward spiral. The only hope, you know, so this is the choice we have. Let's not blow it. Okay, Blue.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, we're going kind of long.
So if I eat kheer off of a leaf, I go right back to Godhead?
If you eat what?
If I eat kheer off a leaf, do I go right back to Godhead?
It'll
like
take a little while.
It'll take a little.
Yeah, you may have to take a cat body.
No, that's okay. I think I've been there. A few times. And then my real question is, you all were talking about detached from the idea of being detached and renouncing wife, children, everything. When I hear this idea, I always think, well, someone has to stay in white cloth and actually be...
No, but you're talking about that verse I chanted?
Yeah.
No. What it says is, every word is important. Jaya Sudhari means wife, etc. You know, we should all expand. Mamatam vimuncha. Give up your sense of ownership. Now that this is mine, this is, you know, realize that these are all, agents for you who you can help engage in devotional service. Just like yesterday, it was so wonderful, you know, when Gaur Keshav would come to this family. I even mentioned it, and you weren't here. And there was a line in the purport. So to be a proper householder means to be very serious about training your children in devotional service. And there he is, Mukunda sitting there, and Vrinda, you know, she had actually sung the Jaya Radha Madhava, you know. And these kids are being homeschooled, you know. So it's such a great example. I couldn't resist. He said, I pointed it out. You know, he comes in it, and I said the most amazing thing about it, you remember what it was? That little Mukunda can play those big whoppers in time. When I first saw him playing, I said, "Oh, I got to take these away from this kid. He's right in time." You know. So we have many examples of that in ISKCON. You know, it's more difficult in one sense, but it's a great example because you know, people think, "Oh, I don't have to, become renunciant and do all this, you know, to be a devotee." And Prabhupada was very eager for that. You know, it's not an accident that he took his 3 householder couples and sent them to England to pioneer, you know, and they did incredible work there. So that's, it's not that you have to, that everyone has to become a renunciant. No. And I even heard of a lecture Prabhupada was giving, and he pointed out, let's be honest, all the great he was referring to all the great acharyas, Madhvacharya, Ramanuja, and everything. They all had parents. They were a product of sex life. It was a holy sex life. It was under control. It was Krishna conscious. Dharma Varuna Buddhishu Kamosmi Bhadatarshabha. Krishna says in the 7th chapter, I am that sex life which is not contrary to religious principles. So Prabhupada gave us the religious principles, and it's a proper thing. If the children are, raised nicely and everything. It's more difficult. I mean, I never thought I could possibly do it. Never entered into that, but it's not impossible. Okay, I think we better go. Oh, you had some? Want some?
I got some more.
Okay. Go ahead, Vijay. Prabhu.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, can you recite again the English translation to the quotation from the Tantra Nirnaya in the purport?
Oh, I think I can. Yes. You want this a translation?
The English translation, please.
Yeah, well, it's not an exact translation because I know it quotes, but I'll give what came after it. From Lord Brahma down, all the living entities engaged in the service of the Lord are extraordinary and are called vibhuti.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Prabhu, based on this quotation, my question is, why is it that as soon as I engage myself in the service of the Lord, I change from being an ordinary living entity to an extraordinary living entity? Extraordinary in what sense?
Exceptional? Rare? How many of these living entities from Brahmadan down are engaged in the service of the Lord?
Not many.
Yeah,
You're right.
And the thing is, it's a tremendous opportunity. I compare it to winning the lottery. It's way more valuable than that. In fact, they've done studies. Those who win the lottery are much more miserable than they could be. So you imagine suddenly I now have $1 million, and all my old friends, if I haven't even talked to for years, come out of the woodwork, And they've done studies. No, but really, getting a human form and getting the association of devotees, especially a pure devotee, getting the inspiration to practice Krishna consciousness, and even practicing a little bit, which is never lost. There's no loss or diminution. This is the greatest good fortune we could possibly have. And what's really wonderful to contemplate, we can easily give that good fortune to others by working, simply being part of the Sankirtan movement. But it's a special blessing to personally engage in giving Krishna consciousness to others. Even just maintaining the temple, giving donations, this is all auspicious. But if we're feeling, that, this person I spoke to has now come to the temple, and now they get a book, and now they get started to chant. It's such a wonderful feeling, because Krishna's pleased by that. So that's what is most extraordinary. Living and engaged in the service of the Lord means engaged in serving Him and the most ardent thing that He wants in that service is that others will become Krishna conscious. All glories to the Sankirtan movement. I hope that's okay, Vijay.
Of course, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
All
Hare
glories,
Krishna.
all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.